Hey Deckers, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is here and I've got some fantastic news. It's running fantastically well on the Steam Deck and it even has FSR 3 implemented, however it's not performing as well as I would expect. What is performing much better than I would have expected though is the FSR 2 mode, and this is definitely going to be forming part of our recommendation, which we'll show in a minute for our best settings to play this one. Overall though, FSR 3 quality does look just as good, maybe a little bit better than the FSR 2 quality mode. However, there does seem to be a little bit of extra input latency and we are seeing a lot of gameplay spikes, so even locking this at 60 in game isn't giving a solid 60 outside of cutscenes and some of the fight sections. As you'll see, even with FSR 2, especially outside of battles moving around the city, we do get regular dips. Now, there isn't a huge amount of difference between the quality and balance modes, so we are sticking with quality mode on the FSRs here. But if we look at the FSR 2 quality mode, you don't see a huge amount of difference between FSR 2 and FSR 3. However, we do see that the frame times are much more stable and the dips are much less. Now, a lot of those slowdowns are either loading spikes or during some of those battle slowdown scenes, so if you turn the FPS overlay off, you're probably not really going to notice it, though when you are moving around it does dip down even into the 50s and spikes into the 30s occasionally, so there's definitely some loading spike issues here, and I am running it off the SSD on the OLED Steam Deck here, so it is as good as it's going to be. You might say, oh, there is FSR 3 frame gen in this, but I do not recommend it. Just look what happens to the frame time. There's definitely some input latency that's also introduced, and it really doesn't look as good as it should. So our best settings that we're going to recommend for this one is the medium preset, with FSR 2 on quality and 0.8 on the sharpening, motion blur off as well, capping it is in game the medium preset frames per second. With those settings you are going to have a fantastic time on the Steam Deck, and if you have the OLED it does have HDR as well, but in most of the gameplay and most of the battles it will stick up at that 60 frames per second mark, and pretty much all of the cutscenes seem to run at a solid 60 frames per second as well, so you can enjoy them in all their glory at these settings. Now, as I said, even with these settings, running it around in the city, especially with areas loading in, will give regular dips. So if you really want a much more stable experience, you can cap the Steam Deck itself at 40 frames per second, and you will notice those dips less often. However, running it at 60 and just dealing with those lag spikes here and there is the way that I've been playing this, and with a couple of hours in I definitely want to play this a lot more, and it is a great one on the Steam Deck, especially with the battery life. As you can see, it's still only pulling around 21-22 watts on the OLED, meaning you're going to get a good 2.5 to 3 hours battery life. However, on the LCD it does push it up to around 26-27 watts, meaning you are only going to get around 2 hours on the LCD. But overall, this is running fantastic, and it's great to see this series improving on both the quality and gameplay front every single time. Let us know if you're going to dive into this one. It is a bit pricey, but it is well worth it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.